today's video, I'm going to show you how to build a RAG data pipeline that keeps all of your documents up to date by creating new rows, updating, archiving, and even doing a data health check once per day. So here's the problem we're trying to fix. Data in your RAG databases often goes stale. You upload a new file, but your old embeddings are still there. Most people fix the issue by deleting the old embeddings and uploading the new ones. But this breaks context and history, and it's also very, very risky. So what we need is a smarter pipeline that can automatically detect changes in your Google Drive folder and update all of the new data automatically. So before we get into it, what is a data pipeline? A data pipeline is just a repeatable set of steps that inserts, updates, archives, or even just cleans your data. So in our case, input, process, store, update, archive. This will keep your database up to date, save you rework, and make sure your AI gives you the latest answers. So here's what we'll build. Okay guys, here's what we're gonna build. So at the very top, you can see that I've got a customer service agent. And it's just the basic setup. All it really is it's connected to a chat node where users are able to ask a question. The customer support agent will then go to our vector database, look for the answer, and then write a response. So that's our use case, but behind the scenes, what we really want to focus on is the RAG vector data pipeline. So underneath that, you'll see there are 4 different sections. First section is going to be what I'm going to call the create pipeline. So anytime a new folder moves into our documents folder, let's just call it, it will automatically download the file and then insert those embeddings into our database. Now, the main problem with what happens when the main problem with businesses is that a lot of their data actually gets updated. Now, one of the main problems with businesses is they're always updating a lot of their policies, frequently asked questions, that sort of stuff. We need to account for that. And the way that we do it is through our update pipeline. So you can see here in the purple, we have a trigger on Google Drive. And what it's going to be looking for is anytime a change is made to a specific document in that folder, we're going to go ahead and archive the old records in our vector database and upload the latest version of the file into our vector database. The third data pipeline that we're going to work on is an archival pipeline. So what that means is whenever a user needs to delete a document or a piece of knowledge from the knowledge base, we need to go ahead and archive those records. So the way that we achieve this is we actually have another folder, which we'll call trash can or recycling bin. And any new files that are updated in that folder will trigger the archive rows in our Supabase database. And finally, our last data pipeline is going to be a health check or a reconciliation. So what happens with a lot of businesses is that their databases get out of sync or their data goes stale. So what we're doing with this is we're going to schedule a trigger once per day that's going to do a little bit of a reconciliation of all the files in that specific folder and check it against our database to make sure that we have the latest data. And we'll see that in action. This is just the health check that we'll be running once per day. And it's probably one of the most important things that we need to do to build confidence that our knowledge base that the AI agent's going to use is up to date. So let's see a live demo. So what you see here is just a mock-up of a frequently asked question. It contains a lot of information about our businesses, ordering and payments, shipping and delivery, returns and refunds sort of policies, and the most frequently asked questions that they get. So what we're going to do is move that folder or upload the folder into our AI agent knowledge base. So I'll just quickly do that. I prepared one earlier. And we'll move it into the knowledge base here. It might take a little moment to actually upload. Cool, now it's there. So let's go back into our data pipeline. And what I'm gonna do is trigger the create pipeline. So I'll just go here and we'll click. So what you'll see is it's downloading the file and then it's gonna go ahead and upload that to our vector database store. And you can see that there were 5 items uploaded. So if we go to our vector database, we'll be able to see that there are 5 new items that have been created. And if you look at each of the embeddings, you can actually see the content, how it's split up. So in row 1, we've got the frequently asked questions, ordering and payments. Row 2, we've got the shipping and delivery. And row 3, row 4, and row 5. So now if we go ask our customer service agent, what is our shipping policy? You'll be able to see that the AI agent is going to reference the vector database, and it's going to retrieve the information from those embeddings. So here you can see shipping options. We offer standard and express shipping options. Yes, we ship to many international destinations. So our customer support agent has access to the Supabase database in order to retrieve the frequently asked questions and answer the user's question. Now, one of the biggest pain points that businesses have is that they want to update their documents. So for example, they might change their shipping and delivery policies. We can see that they offer standard and express shipping options. But what happens if they only offer standard shipping? So we'll just remove standard shipping. And what happens if they no longer ship internationally? So we'll just change their policy to no, we do not ship to international destinations. And we'll just remove this second part as well. So we've gone ahead and updated our policies. Let's go sync this back to our vector database. So this time I'm gonna run our update pipeline. So I'll just select the update trigger and we'll go ahead and execute it. So right now it's just archiving those previous rows and it's downloading the newest file and then gonna upload the new embeddings with the new updated policy. So let's go take a look. So in our vector database now, you'll see that there are 4 new entries. So if we click into the shipping policy, we can see now that the shipping policy states that we only offer standard shipping options and no, we do not ship to international destinations. You'll also notice that the 5 original embeddings have been set to inactive, whereas the 4 new embeddings have been set to active. So this is important because when our customer support agent goes to retrieve specific information, it's going to filter only on the active embeddings. And let's take a look at that now. So back in n8n, let's ask our customer support agent now, what is your shipping policy? And what's going to happen now, it's going to retrieve the most recent updated rows that are set to active, and we'll see it here. So the shipping options are, we offer standard shipping options. There's no longer any express shipping option, and international shippings. We do not ship to international destinations. So this is really good because now our customer service agent is pulling from our latest frequently asked questions. So we've updated that stale data. We still have it in the database, but we've set it to inactive, and our AI agent is only going to use the active data when it's returning responses to the user. Okay, so let's go to our third use case. What happens when a business wants to remove a document from their knowledge base? So in this instance, we need the ability to go ahead and archive all of the active records. So to do this, we'll go into our Google Drive, and you can see here that I've got the AI agent knowledge base, but I've also got another folder called trash can, which is for the RAG demo. So the theory is, what we're gonna do is we're gonna move the file from our AI agent knowledge base into the trash can, and then once the new file is in the trash can, that's gonna trigger the archival workflow. So let's go ahead and do this. So if we go into our AI agent knowledge base, we'll click on the 3 dots, click on organize, click on move, and let's go ahead and move it to our trash can. Fantastic, it's gone. Behind the scenes, let's go and execute our archival workflow. So I'm just gonna execute that. Cool, so now let's go to our RAG database. So I'll just move out of the way, and you can see all of the embeddings that have been related to that file have now been set to inactive. So this means when our AI agent goes ahead and tries to find the shipping policy, for example, it's not going to be able to return a response. Let's go show that. So back in n8n, I'm going to ask, what is our shipping policy? And this time we're expecting it not to be able to find any results. So it's going to be thinking, searching the Supabase vector database, and then it goes, I could not find the specific information regarding a shipping policy. So we're actually having the AI agent connect to our database and only use the active information. And the final part to our data pipeline is our health check or reconciliation. So the idea behind this one is once per day, we're going to run a health check where we check the Google Drive folder for our knowledge base and we scan for all of the files in that folder. We then do a comparison to what's in our vector database to see if there are active rows in the database that matches up to the latest version of the files in the Google Drive folder. So we can look in our database now and we can see all of the rows have been set to active. If we go to our Google Drive folder, we can see there is a knowledge base FAQ. So what we're going to want to do is run this health check reconciliation. I'll just click on it now. What it's done is it's searched the folder for all of the files and then it's going to loop through each file. It's then going to check the database for those active rows. If they do exist, then it'll go back to the loop and check for the next file. But if they don't exist, it's going to go ahead and set a variable of the file where we want to upload the latest version to our vector database. So you can see here that it's found that there is an instance of where our file doesn't exist in our database, and it's gone ahead and download the file and upload it into our database. So if we go back to Supabase now, and we just quickly refresh that, you'll see behind me, there are 4 new rows that have been inserted and they are all active. So this health check flow runs once per day and it keeps our database in sync with all of the files in the Google Drive. This is the secret sauce to make sure that the data in your database doesn't go stale and that your AI agents are using the latest data in order to answer the customer inquiries. So how do we build this? We're first going to start with the Supabase database. So log into supabase.com and create a new organization. I'm just going to call this demo org. It just needs to be type of personal and we can use a free plan to do what we need. Once the new org has been created, click on new project and we'll just call this demo org and then create a new project. Next, I want you to go to the left-hand side panel and click on the SQL editor. And there's a special script which I want you to paste into the SQL editor. What it essentially does is it creates our table for us with the isActive field. It then goes and creates an index, as well as creates a function called match documents, which allows our AI agent to only search for active records. And if you know a bit of SQL, this is the query that we're using. So click on run and then you'll see the success, no rows returned. Now if we go back into our table editor, we'll have a new table called documents with all of the columns set up. So ID to store the ID of the embedding, content to store the actual content, metadata to store all of the pieces of information about the embedding. So maybe where the file name came from, the data was created, and any other pieces of metadata that you want to store will be stored in this JSON blob. We then have the embedding, and then we have our isActive flag, which is going to be either true or false, and it's going to allow us to do the archiving of old records. So the next step is to go to our project settings. Make sure you go to the data API here. Copy the project URL. We'll need this project URL to set up our credentials in n8n. So to set up your Supabase credentials, open a Supabase vector store. Click on the downward facing arrow and click on new credential. Paste that URL that you just copied. Now go back to Supabase, go to your API keys here, and then make sure to copy the top key. Go back to n8n, paste the service role secret there, and click on save. It's going to test and you'll see a success message after you've saved it. Now n8n has access to your Supabase data table. That easy. So the very first thing that we're going to set up is the customer service agent. I've simply added a chat node at the very beginning. This enables the user to chat to our customer agent. Next, I go to our customer support agent and I've connected it to the chat trigger node. I've just given it a basic system message. You are a customer support assistant. Use the Supabase vector store to find relevant company information and answer the user's question accurately. Only search for the rows where isActive is equal to true. Next, I've connected an OpenAI chat model and I've used GPT-4o Mini. I've added simple memory so that the AI agent has context of the previous messages, and I've set the context window length to 5. That's by default. Finally, I'm giving our customer service agent access to our Supabase vector store. So we'll double click into that. I've just connected my own credentials. The operation mode is set to retrieve documents. Description is retrieve the information from Supabase. The table name is documents. Limit set to 20. And make sure that you add the query name match_documents exactly. So that's what's going to be searching our vector database for the most relevant information so that our AI agent can answer the user's inquiry. So now let's get into building our RAG data pipeline. So the first one is going to be this create pipeline. You'll see here that I've got a Google Drive trigger when a file is created in a specific folder. So I'll just double click to show you how I've set that up. So the poll time will be every minute and will trigger on changes involving a specific folder. So for my folder, I've chosen AI Agent Knowledge Base, and we're going to watch for any files that were created. So anytime a user moves, creates a new file in that folder, it's going to trigger this workflow. And second, we're going to download the file, and we need to do that so our Supabase vector store can actually go ahead and create those embeddings and upload them to our database. So here I've connected my credentials. The operation mode is insert documents, and I'm inserting them into the documents table. And you'll see the embedding batch size is set to 200, and this is just going to control how big each of the embeddings is. The next step is to add embeddings OpenAI. So make sure to choose the text embedding 3 small, because it does have some implications on being able to insert embeddings into our vector database. Next, we're going to use the default data loader, and in here is where I'm able to specify some of the metadata that gets inserted into that JSON blob. So you'll see here I'm storing the file name of the embedding as well as the date the file was inserted, which is now. And that's all you need to do for the create pipeline. So let's move on. Next, we're going to move to our update pipeline. So again, we've got a Google Drive trigger when a file is updated. This will poll every single minute when changes are made in our AI Agent Knowledge Base folder, and we're going to watch for when a file is updated. This will trigger the event, and what we're going to do next is we're going to archive all of the old rows in our database. So we've used an update function. The resource will be the row, operation update, our table name documents, and our select type string. Then we added a filter, which is the metadata. So we're searching in the metadata column for a file name that is I-like, which is like, and then the name of the file, which is dynamically set by the JSON.name. And then we're going to set those rows to be inactive. So you'll see underneath, we've got defined below for each column. The field name is active is going to be set to false. Next, we go and download the file, and I'm referencing the Google Drive update trigger, item.json.id, to get the file ID. There is one important part. If we go to our settings, I want you to execute this only once. The reason is if you don't select that, it will try and update it multiple times for each embedding. Next, we go to our Supabase store, and like before, we set the operation mode to insert documents into our table, and the embedding batch size is set to 200. And like before, we're using the same embedding model, text embedding 3 small, and then we're going to use the same settings for our default data loader. So you'll see here, everything's the same. We're setting the metadata file name as well as the date. And that completes our update pipeline. Let's move on. Okay, now let's move to the archive pipeline. So this one's a little bit different because we're actually using a Gmail trigger on file created, and we're looking at a different folder. I'll show you what I mean. So you can see here, I'm polling every minute. I'm still triggering on changes involving a specific folder, but the folder is set to the trash can, and we're setting for watch for file created. So anytime we move a file from our knowledge base folder into our trash can, this is going to go ahead and execute our trigger. Now, in the next node, we're doing an update row, which is going to archive those existing rows. So you'll see here, I've connected the rows, resource, operation update, table names, documents, select type string. I've inserted my filters, which is meta, file name, like, JSON.name. And the filter set is inactive is going to be set to false. That will then archive all of the embeddings in our database. And now we've just completed our archive data pipeline. Now onto our secret sauce, the health check. And this one might look a little bit more complex because it's got a little bit of a loop in it, but I'll explain it step by step. So with our health check, we'll actually use a scheduled trigger, and we'll be triggering it once per day. Next, we're going to search for all the files within our knowledge base folder. So I've just set a search files in folder. The resource is a file folder, operation is search method is search for file folder name. My search query, I've left it blank because I want to return all from our knowledge base folder. So this will actually give us a list of all the files in our knowledge base, and that's why we have the loop and scan all of the files and compare it against our database. So as I was saying, the next step is to loop through each of the files in our knowledge base. So I've just set up a loop over items. the batch size will be set to 1. And then because we're in the loop, we want to set the file name so that we know which file we're talking about. So to do that, I just set a file name. So to do that, I'm setting the name is equal to json.name, which will give us the file name. After that, I'm going to go ahead and use the get many rows. And to get the many rows, I'm going to set the operation to get many in our table documents. I want to return all, and then I'm going to filter on the file name that we previously just got. So within the metadata, I'm matching against the file name, and that will be equal to our JSON name that we previously set. Next, we're going to make sure that we're only filtering on active records. So we set the isActive is equal to true. Now we have a checkpoint. We need to go and see if there are any active records that actually exist or not. So if we look in here, I'm checking to see if the get many rows actually produced any records or not. And to do this, I'm checking that it is not empty. So if there are active records that already exist, we're going to move to the next file and do the same loop. But if our folder contains files and our database doesn't contain any rows, that means there's a delta. So what we're going to do is set the file name that we want to create those rows for. And again, I'm just saying the name is equal to the file name. After we set the name, it'll go back into the loop and continue on. And once we finish the loop, we're going to go ahead and check if we need to create any records in our database. So if there were any instances where there was a file, but there were no active records in the database, we're going to go down and download that file so that we can upload those new rows using a Supabase vector store. So I'll quickly show you that. In the download file, I'm using the search files and folders.item.json.id. This gives me the actual file to download from the folder. And then next, I'm using a Supabase vector store as before. So the operation mode will be insert into our documents table, and I've set the embedding batch size to 200. And as before, I've set the default data loader. So in the metadata, I'm setting the file name as well as the date. And just for good measure, I'll show you the embeddings OpenAI model as well. I'm using the text embedding 3 small model as I have been doing it throughout this entire tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed this end-to-end data pipeline tutorial. If you found this useful, please don't forget to subscribe. And if you want the full template, make sure to join my automation vault. The link's in the description below. And as always, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.